You know, when you're scrolling through property listings, you see that price, right? But we all know that's just the opening offer. What you see is almost never what you actually end up paying. So today, we're going to dive into some really fascinating research that peels back the layers on that price tag to show you what's really going on. Let's pull back the curtain.
I mean, that's the big question, isn't it? We all just assume there's some haggling, a bit of back and forth, and you land somewhere below asking. But how much below? And is that little negotiation at the end the only thing pushing the price down? Well, it turns out the real answer is way more interesting.
So in the real estate world, everyone throws around this term, the bargaining discount. It sounds simple, right? The seller lists a bit high, the buyer offers a bit low, and they meet somewhere in the middle. Case closed. But what if that simple term is actually hiding what's really happening?
And here's the big reveal from this research. What we call one single bargaining discount isn't one thing at all. Nope, it's actually two completely separate forces pushing that price down. And once you see them, you can't unsee them.
Okay, so let's break this down. First, you've got the negotiation effect. This is what we all think of, the classic haggling at the very end to seal the deal. But there's this other thing happening way before that called the price decay effect. This is the price slowly dropping because the seller was a little too optimistic at the start and the property just sits there. No bites. So they have to lower the price just to get some attention.
And this is where it gets really clever. The researchers realized that not all property websites are created equal. In fact, depending on which site you're looking at, you could be seeing a price from a totally different point in this whole journey. This became the central clue they needed to solve the mystery.
Okay, so picture the life of a typical property sale. It starts out on a big public website with that high, hopeful price. It might sit for a while, and the price might even drop a bit. That's our price decay. Then, a buyer finally comes along, they make an offer, they agree on a price, and only then, if they're getting a mortgage from a specific big lender, does the property suddenly pop up on the lender's own platform, DomClick. See what happened there? By the time a property even gets listed on DomClick, most of the big price drop has already happened. Which leads us to the core question of this whole analysis. If this theory holds up, then the prices you see on DomClick should be consistently, measurably lower than the prices for similar homes on the other big sites. So does the data actually back this up? And the answer is a huge yes. The first look at the data was totally clear. A simple statistical test showed that prices on DomClick aren't just a tiny bit lower, they are significantly lower across the board. This chart here gives us the first big hint, but it doesn't tell us exactly how much of a difference there is when you compare apples to apples. Because, no two homes are exactly the same. To figure out the true price difference caused just by the website it's listed on, you have to control for everything else. You have to account for size, location, condition, all of it. You have to create a level playing field, digitally. So how do you do that? Well, they used a really powerful machine learning tool called a random forest. Now I know that sounds super complicated, but the way it works is actually pretty cool and intuitive. Just imagine you have a panel of hundreds of experts. You give each expert just a little piece of the evidence, not the whole file, and ask for their opinion. Then you average all those opinions together. The final result is way more accurate than any single expert could be. It's a brilliant way to untangle all these messy factors. So, what kind of evidence did our panel of experts look at? All the usual stuff. The exact latitude and longitude, total area, the class of the building, even things like the kitchen size. But the key piece of evidence, the smoking gun, was that last one, the listing source. This let the model figure out the exact price impact of being listed on DomClick versus somewhere else, while holding everything else steady. So after running thousands of listings through this whole process, the model did its thing, it crunched the numbers, and it finally managed to separate those two different parts of the price drop, revealing the hidden figures behind the whole real estate dance. All right, first number, the model found that last-minute haggling, that final negotiation after a price has already been mostly agreed upon, it's actually pretty small. On average, it's just a 1.6% discount. That's the last little nudge before the deal is done. But this is the big one. This is that hidden price decay effect finally put into numbers. The model discovered that after you account for everything else, properties on those general listing sites start out a full 8% higher than comparable properties on DomClick. That 8% is the optimism tax, the premium that slowly gets chipped away as a home waits for a buyer. So, let's put it all together. You take that 8% of price decay and you add the final 1.6% of negotiation. What do you get?
A total average price drop of 9.5% from that first optimistic listing all the way to the final sale. That is the true bargaining discount.
And this table really lays it all out. It's basically a cheat sheet. If you're looking at a listing on DomClick, the data says you should probably adjust that price down by about 1.6% to guess the final price. But if you see a similar place on Cion or Avito, you need to apply a way bigger adjustment, the whole 9.5%, to account for both that initial high price and the final haggle. It's the same house, but a totally different story depending on where you see it.
So, what's the bottom line here? Well, first, that bargaining discount we all talk about, it's really two different things. Second, where you see a listing is not just some random detail. It tells you a lot about where that property is in its price journey. And finally, it's just a great reminder that data science can show us these hidden economic forces all around us. I mean, without this context, you'd be misjudging a property's true value by almost 10%.
And that kind of leaves you with one last question, right? We've just seen how data can totally change how we look at home prices. But it makes you wonder, what other prices that we see every day are being shaped by these kinds of invisible stories? What hidden data is setting the price for things in your world?